Alex, and welcome to Vegan with the Passport. Currently, we are in Istanbul, Turkey, and we are going to eat our way around the city. From an all-vegan food deli, to a vegan Turkish breakfast, to restaurants that serve vegan Turkish cuisine, and street eats, we have quite a bit to explore, so let's go. Let's start our Istanbul adventure at Vegan Masa. This is a fully vegan restaurant that specializes in Turkish flatbreads. I first ended up getting this drink called Arian. Now, this is a Turkish yogurt drink that isn't meant to be sweet, which, if you're familiar with lassi, this may be the first thing that comes to your mind. At least it came to my mind. Anyway, at this specific restaurant, they use almond-based yogurt and cashew milk. For me, it was something I had to sip on slowly, but I did enjoy the tangy beverage. And the next thing was lentil soup. And on the side actually came these dried pieces of bread, which you could add to your lentil soup. Now overall, I thought the lentil soup was okay on its own. However, with the added pieces of crunchy bread, it added a whole different dimension of texture. And it also did enhance the flavor. Now the next thing was lahmacun, and if you haven't been able to tell by now, this whole restaurant just makes me excited. I decided to get vegan meat and herbs on mine, and it came with a side of dried mint, pickled red cabbage, and tomatoes. And you actually take these toppings and roll them into your lahmacun. Or I guess you can also eat it by the spoonful, as I saw somebody doing in the restaurant. This is a no judgment zone, by the way. We don't judge here. The lahmacun was delicious along with the seasonings and also with the toppings that it came with. And also that lahmacun dough was soft. I decided to end my evening with some chai, which I enjoyed. And I also decided to try this dark chocolate pudding, which wasn't too sweet, but also wasn't overly bitter. It had a hard outside, but once I broke it with my spoon, it was soft. And overall, I enjoyed my pudding. I decided to go a second time. Again, no judging on this channel. This time, I decided to get a pide with mushrooms and cheese. There was a cheesy flavor, and I really love how the cheese had a gooey consistency to it. And I love how the mushrooms were well balanced throughout the pide and how it wasn't overdone. Also, the pide had a crunchy crust towards the outside, but the crust remained soft on the insides. And then to end the meal, I ended up having a yogurt soup. Now, I was definitely skeptical when I heard the words yogurt and soup together. However, I'm glad I tried it because I really enjoyed it. Now let's check out an all-vegan restaurant called Falafel Zone, which is an all-vegan restaurant specializing in falafel. They also have a few non-falafel dishes, which is great for me since I'm not the biggest fan of falafel. Also, for people that think I eat alone all the time, a cat decided to join me for lunch, so this is a meal for two. I decided to order a mushroom wrap, which came with this secret sweet sauce, and they wouldn't tell me a single ingredient in the sauce. I'm not joking. This was delicious, especially with that sweet sauce, and I love the combination with the savoriness of the mushrooms, and I love how the mushrooms wasn't overpowering. And then on the side came these delicious crispy french fries. My goodness. I also got some hummus, which wasn't bad. However, my favorite was the flavorful and creamy baba ganoush. I also had a tasty hibiscus tea, which came with a side of homemade vegan Turkish delights. The restaurant also sells their Turkish delight, so I was able to take quite a few boxes home. Now let's switch gears to a different vegan Turkish restaurant. And at this specific restaurant, you can either order a la carte or you can reserve a Turkish breakfast in advance. Of course, I decided to do the latter. And this ended up being a huge feast. I was sitting for 2 hours slowly nibbling. This feast included a dish with sausage and peppers, another dish with seasoned cucumbers and tomatoes. I also had bread topped with cashew cream, cheese, and tomatoes. I also had a dish which is called menemen and is usually made from egg. However, we had a vegan up in here. They made it using tofu and they ended up adding green and red peppers and also tomato. The breakfast also came with gozeme, which is another type of Turkish flatbread, and this one ended up coming with soy mince, peppers, onion, garlic, and some type of sauce. I also had a vegan cheese plate with 4 different types of cheeses, including walnut, white, Turkish cheese, and also quote-unquote normal cheese. There was also a bread bowl, and you better buckle up for the next one. I am nowhere near done. I ended up getting this board with a variety of sauces. Let's try to go through them from top to bottom and left to right. I don't know if I made any sense, but let's just do this. This included roasted eggplant sauce, mushroom sauce, a cashew sauce with basil and garlic, a red pepper tomato and pesto sauce, a red pepper and chili jam. There was also a fig jam. There was a mixed tomato sauce. There were roasted green olives, herbal green cheese, beetroots. Why am I holding my breath while I'm reading this? There was also butter, molasses, mozzarella spread, Balkan sauce, and vegan yogurt. I can breathe. And lastly, I'm done here, okay? There was chai. Now, I'm not gonna bore you with everything I ate because we've had enough of this, okay? But what I will say is that I really enjoyed my breakfast and that it was nice trying different Turkish treats. I also decided to visit the Balat location on a different day. However, it's temporarily closed, but no worries, they have other locations throughout Istanbul. This location does have a lovely rooftop though. Anyway, I decided to order a la carte. I first decided to try this traditional Turkish meatball, which is then deep fried, and in this particular case, it was stuffed with soy meat. Overall, I thought the taste was okay, but nothing special. However, that fried batter did give the meatball a lovely crunch. I then decided to try their manti. And manti is a Turkish dumplings dish which is then topped with either yogurt, tomato sauce, or a brown sugar sauce. And this was by far my favorite manti I had throughout this entire trip. This particular manti was topped with a tomato sauce, and it had a lovely herb and spice mix to it that just made the flavors pop. I also enjoyed the somewhat meaty hints from the meat stuffing inside, and I also enjoyed the soft texture from the manti. And of course, I had to wrap things up with a chai. Now it's time to get something light on the stomach, and let's swing by Maya's Corner Cafe. Although not a vegan establishment, they do have a variety of coffees, teas, juices, and plant milks to add to your beverages. When I visited, there weren't any vegan snack options, but maybe that has changed since. Also, it's on this super cute street, and I ran into this cafe randomly, and I'm so happy I did. The first time I visited, I decided to order a Turkish coffee. Now just note that this did come with a Turkish Delight, which wasn't vegan, and usually Turkish Delights have gelatin in them, just so you're aware. Besides that, my coffee was delicious and it came with this beautiful setup. And there even was a fresh flower. Also, I ended up ordering this fresh orange juice, and fresh as in, I was watching them squeeze them oranges on the spot. This was another delicious drink from this cafe, and it was also refreshing. During my second visit, I ended up having this beautiful lemonade, and as usual, it was a tasty drink from the cafe. Now it's time to eat again, and let's go to an all-vegan deli called Vegan Istanbul. This restaurant has quite a few of veganized Turkish eats. There's a variety of veggie dishes, there's also a variety of chickpea and bean dishes, there's casseroles, manti, hummus, and falafel. There's also desserts such as baklava and cookies. The first time I visited, I got zucchini casserole, manti, falafel, hummus, and baklava for dessert. Overall, I thought the dishes were okay, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm not the biggest fan of falafel, but since I was in Turkey, I felt obligated to eat it at least once. Now what was delicious was that manti. It was bursting with flavor. It was coated in this flavorful tomato sauce, and it ended up having a lovely soft texture. As for the baklava, it was on the sweeter end, but it'll cover craving nevertheless. During my second visit, I of course got some more menti, I also got some lentils, and I also got these rice balls that were coated in a tomato sauce. As for the rice balls, they had a light tomato taste which I enjoyed, however texture-wise, they were a little chewy and sticky. Also, the lentils weren't bad, they seemed to be coated in a tomato sauce and peppers. And y'all already know how I feel about the menti, and the next time I'm in Istanbul, I'm just gonna get a plate of this the next time I visit this deli. On the topic of menti, let's go visit another fully vegan restaurant serving some menti along with other Turkish dishes. I ended up ordering a menti which was made with spinach pasta, and it was coated in tomato sauce and yogurt, and it was topped with nuts. I found the menti to be flavorful from the tomato sauce and yet creamy from that yogurt. I also had gozleme stuffed with spinach and vegan cheese, and this was tasty. Also, I love the flakiness of the gozleme, and it was delicious with the stuffed toppings. The next time I visited, I decided to try the tarhana soup, and this is a dish from the Anatolia region of Turkey. Vegan versions of this soup usually consist of flour, tomatoes, capia peppers, and spices and seasonings. I couldn't pinpoint the flavor, it was something very unique. But it was delicious and something I would easily order again. It did have some tanginess to it, but I don't know how to explain it beyond that. It's just something you're gonna have to try for yourself. Now let's check out a restaurant with some vegan options called Galata Lily Cafe. Although not a vegan establishment, they do have a separate vegan menu. I first started off with this kiwi tea, and the taste was so fruity and so unique. And this is definitely my all-time favorite fruit tea I have ever had. I then ordered this mushroom stew with peppers, which actually came in this sizzling hot pot. Overall, the dish wasn't bad, but it wasn't a wowzer. I then decided to have the mizi platter, and now we're talking. It included pita, pickled sweet peppers, dolma, hummus, baba ganoush, and mohamara. All elements on that mizi platter were delicious. However, my favorite without a doubt was that mohamara, and they actually said that it's their own spin of mohamara and it's not a traditional mohamara, which makes me a little sad because I don't know where to find something like this. There was literally a dance party happening in my mouth, and it is uniquely unlike any other mohamara I have ever had, and I still remember it to this day. Now let's check out another restaurant called Roma's Cafe. This is another non-vegan restaurant, however they do offer vegan options. I ended up ordering this veggie clay pot which came with tomatoes and squash and was in a tomato-based broth. And my food came out burning hot. Literally. Yes, my food is literally on fire. Now, despite the entertaining show, which I did enjoy, I'm not gonna lie, it didn't take away from the fact that the veggie pot was lacking some flavor, unfortunately. Now, to end things on a positive note, I did order this lentil soup, and this lentil soup was delicious. It was one of my favorite ones that I had in this city. The next time I'm in this neighborhood, I would easily return just for the soup. I also ordered this orange and pomegranate juice, which became an obsession of mine during my Middle Eastern and Eastern European trip, and yes, I enjoyed my juice. Now let's check out a restaurant called Mr. Dumpling, and this is a restaurant that specializes in Turkish momos. Although a non-vegan restaurant, they have quite a few vegan options and they're all clearly labeled for you. I decided to get two flavors of momos. One was stuffed with roasted spinach and onion, And the other one was stuffed with roasted carrot and zucchini. And it even came with vegan yogurt. Now regarding the texture of the momos, I found them surprisingly chewy given that they had the appearance of being fried. Now as for flavor, I found the spinach and onion ones to not have that much flavor. However, the carrot and zucchini ones were more flavorful and did have a mild spice to it. They also had 2 vegan dessert options during my visit, and I decided to go with the almond milk and rice pudding. There were also fresh strawberries in the pudding, and the pudding was topped with nuts. I love the creaminess of the yogurt and the crunchiness from the nuts, and overall, the dessert wasn't that sweet, but it ended up being a nice refreshing treat. Now let's go over a few street dishes that you can find throughout the city. The first one is sheet kofte, and you really want to be careful with this one because usually on the streets it's made with raw meat. However, there are quite a few vegetarian shops around the city that serve this dish. And the sheet kofte at these vegetarian establishments usually are vegan. As opposed to raw meatballs, as for the vegan version, they're made with ground nuts, bulgur, and spice mix. And then it's topped with lettuce, tomatoes, and a pomegranate sauce, and then wrapped in a tortilla. Overall, I enjoyed this dish. It had a unique taste, and I found it to have a great mixture of being sweet and spicy. Also, I love the mix of herbs, especially with the mint added to it. And I found it to be somewhat crunchy, even though I omitted the lettuce. The next dish you can find is samit. Think of it as a Turkish bagel where the dough is twisted and there are sesame seeds in it. You can also get spreads added to it. However, on the streets, I never saw any vegan spreads, so I always got these plain. You'll also find lots of fresh fruit, meaning that you can get lots of fresh juices. I ended up getting orange mixed with pomegranate most of the time, but you can get whatever you prefer. Besides typical street vendors, you'll also find more upscale stands, as I like to call it, and one time I ended up getting lemonade from one, and another time one was actually attached to a restaurant and I got strawberry juice, and they actually let me sit on their terrace, which was nice because they had a lovely restaurant. Another street food you'll find are roasted chestnuts, and I found some vendors selling these individually priced and others selling these by the kilogram, but regardless, the price came out about the same. Corn is another popular street food I saw in Istanbul, and you can either get it boiled or you can also get it grilled. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of fresh fruits around Istanbul, and one of my favorite snacks to get was watermelon as it was easy to walk around with, but of course you can choose any fruit you prefer. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and would like to see videos similar to this one, be sure to stick around. Until the next time, bye!